Procurement is a central function of supply chain management. Decisions made in procurement have far-reaching effects on the overall performance and impact the financial results. Hi, I'm Aftab Khan, Executive Director and Adjunct Instructor at BRASI. I would like to introduce Rudy Durkovics, my colleague at BRASI, who will present to you a glimpse from our training program called Certificate in Procurement and Contract Management, or CPCM. Rudy has vast experience in all aspects of supply chain management, specializing in global sourcing. I hope that his presentation will help you gain further insights into this important topic. Over to Rudy.
Hi, everybody. I'm Rudy. I am Senior Procurement Agent with Bombardier Aerospace. I used to work at Bombardier Aerospace for more than 10 years, and the good part of that was that whatever was included in the supply chain, we've been exposed to all the aspects. I was a procurement agent, meaning I was working with purchasing mainly, but as you will see later on in your career, that every aspect of the supply chain, it's part of a big umbrella, and regardless of what position you are going to fulfill in that aggregation, you will need to understand everything else. So I'm going to give you an example from my field of work. Is I used to work in procurement, basically, but it was not just procurement based. So I had to understand how to deal with a supplier. I had to understand the product itself. So it was kind of like half supplier development, half engineering. I had to understand the quality side of it because I'll explain it later how the product is being aggregated into the assembly line. Has to meet certain certifications, so I need to understand the certification part of it. Then, very important, I need to understand the internal supply chain of the factory where the final product is being assembled, and the internal supply chain. One of the most important elements is the warehousing, like the inventory, the stock, the product movement. And warehousing on itself is an entire chapter of the supply chain. And then, yes, the internal logistics, and then the post-procurement elements, which is, I don't know, invoicing and then contract management and so on and so forth. So it's a big umbrella. You will have to learn to feel comfortable to assemble all the elements that are being implicated from your field of work into going out into all these different blocks, if you want to name them, or the impact of these blocks into your own work. Let's start with the basic definition of interaction in the supply chain. So in the supply chain, you will always have minimum two parts combined. One of the parts is going to be the supplier. That's why it's called supply chain, right? You will have the supplier who's going to always supply products, materials, services, information, if you will. So whatever is that the customer, which is the second part of the supply chain, whatever the customer is willing to pay for. So the supplier qualification, the supplier needs to achieve certain points of let's call it points of merit in order to join Bombardier. So first off, they have to be ISO certified, right? ISO being a certain international standard agreement, and the standard agreement has to be in place in order for the supplier to be considered a reliable partner. This ISO certification, it is in place to show everybody around that, yes, this business who is ISO certified has reached a certain level of reliance in which the products are being measured, they're being quality verified, they're going to always fit the requirements, and there's a full traceability. I'm just going to make a certain, I don't know, side explanation that I am talking from the point of view of a regulated business. Regulated meaning that there are certain regulation in place in order to accept any sorts of transaction between the partners. So the regulation are, let's say, I'm just going to give you a very maybe comical explanation. If a supplier has to deliver a product and me as the manufacturer, I have to take that product and install it into into a final element that is going to be sold. This product has to be regulated, certified, engineeringly approved, and even if it's just a nut and bolt, this supplier being certified to deliver the nut and bolt has to be at that particular level. So I cannot just go at the local mom and pop shop and ask them just to make a copy of that bolt because I need it and the supplier cannot deliver. So again, there are regulations in place for the supplier to be qualified to deliver, and no other options would be on table to replace this on an on-need basis, as long as the replacement is not in the same certification envelope, right? So the supplier development it's extremely important. After the qualification, we are going to go into the next step, the supplier selection. In the supplier selection, we are selecting the suppliers based on their past performance. Past performance means basically on-time delivery, right?
Yeah, sorry.
So going into the supplier selection, one of the major elements that we are always following, it is the information from the supplier that's going to show us that this supplier is reliable in delivering products. One of the metrics that is measuring this delivery performance, it is the on-time delivery matrix, OTD. Oh, and by the way, you will see that in supply chain, I mean, yes, I'm coming from an aviation world where in aviation there are tons and tons of acronyms, but in supply chain, slowly you're going to see that these acronyms are going to be like common elements. And let's start with this OTD, meaning on-time delivery, right? So when we are going to select the supplier, the on-time delivery has to be above a certain threshold. The threshold comes from the ability of the supplier to deliver the product based on their internal production, first off. And then when you're slowly developing, you're getting into a cooperation with the supplier, constant communication, on-site visits, you name it. All of these elements are going to constantly improve this matrix. Then the supplier has to have full engagement, right? In the full engagement of the supplier, you will have to go beyond the on-time delivery elements, and you will have to get into something so finely refined, like the supplier's willingness to participate to your rate of change. I'm just going to give you an element. I'm just going to give you an example about this element. Let's say we are building airplanes, and every 2 days or 3 days, an airplane goes out from our factories, right? So that means that other components, other build building components are synchronized with this build rate. Now, the supplier has to be fully engaged into supporting this synchronization. Market changes, and if, say, our customer base is going to change their mind and they say, I don't want every 2 days an airplane, I'm going to want every 5 days an airplane. So we are slowing down the production rate. I have to have the supplier engaged fully and like literally engaged into my production delivery rate. So they are going to slow down their own activity. Or if we are increasing the activity, the supplier has to be willing to increase that. So there are lots of elements that are going into the supplier development and the supplier qualification and selection module, if you wish. All of these are just the beginning of a relationship that's going to culminate with basically us, the final customer, purchasing from the supplier the products on an ongoing basis, right? So just to summarize, you will see that the suppliers will be fully engaged into your stream of activity. And after being them engaged, they are going to be part of your daily activity where you are supporting both your internal customers and you will basically manage your external customers, which is the supplier. Now, about the cost management, it doesn't really make sense to go to a supplier who's going to say, yes, I am going to help you whatever you want. If you want an airplane faster out of your gates, we are going to give you that product very fast. If you want the airplane slower, I'm going to give it very slow. It's fine. You will just have to pay for this nut and bolt $1 million a piece. That's not going to work and to support your end results, your financial end results. So you have to have a strategic cost management. It's basically aimed to reducing costs, strengthening your market position of the business, and it's being implemented in basically every stage of your activity, right? How you are managing this? You have three ways of managing the cost. You have a cost driver analysis just to figure out what's impacting your drive, right? Like transportation, execution, the financial stability of your suppliers. Later on, the value of the chain analysis, where you will see, okay, is this going to bring value of my final product or not? And then the strategic position of the supplier, where it determines where the supplier is in the position of the market. Is in a low position, in a competitive position, or in a high performing position? And then where is this going to take you as the final customer, right, into this market? So there are ways to audit supplier to figure out, okay, is this going to be a good partner for my business or not? And then you're just going to have to implement the lessons you are learning and make a decision. I want to work with this business or I don't want to work with business. Of course, it all depends on your field of work. If you're going to be part of the team who is dealing with the supplier selection or supplier qualification, supplier auditing, there are different elements of the supply chain where that's going to deal with selecting a supplier to be a valuable business partner. Or you're just going to be one of the executioning part who is going to execute a portfolio into the big supply chain interaction. There are multiple categories of supply chain. You can select suppliers based on their position, based on their global reach. like here, domestic suppliers on an on-need basis, suppliers who are part of a purchasing mix, or suppliers who are somewhere over there in the globe. They're not even delivering to you, but you are into one of that integrated position. I'm just going to give you an example, real life example, the Rolls-Royce engines. So one of the airplanes that are being built in our environment, they are using the jet engine built in Rolls-Royce in Germany. Now, Rolls-Royce is going to deliver to me the final engine block itself, and we are going to install it in an airplane as a full functioning engine. But Rolls-Royce, in order to be able to build the engine, they will need multiple components that they consider, you know what, I don't really want to deal with that supplier. I'm going to give you the name of the supplier. Say there's a supplier in Toulouse, France by the name Liebherr. And there's another supplier in Manchester, United Kingdom by the name BWT. Liebherr in France, they are building air systems, and their systems are going all over the place in the airplane. They are going into capturing the air from outside and to deliver it to the engines, because the engines, like 75% of the output of the engine comes from the air volume, and 25% comes from the fuel. So this air needs to be managed. After that, the air again needs to be managed internally into the airplane, and that's where the low pressure ducting system from BWT comes into place. Now, Rolls-Royce is going to say, okay, we are going to need air from outside for the engines, but apart from that air, it's going to go inside, and it's going to be conditioned into managing properly the inside ambient, if you want to say this, of the aircraft. Temperature, air pressure of the aircraft, quality of the air, and so on and so forth. So Rolls-Royce, who is building the engine, is going to say, I don't have this relationship with Liebherr, I don't have this relationship with BWT, but you have all these relationships. You go and get me these parts. I'm going to install it in the engine. And that's where I got into the picture as a supply chain agent, because I'm going to negotiate with Liebherr and BWT. Yes, I need components for the airplane, but Rolls-Royce needs components for the engine as well. So part of your production is going to be drop shipped, and that's the technical terminology. We are going to drop ship elements into Rolls-Royce's engine. I will never see those parts because they are going to be installed in the engine, but I see the paper trail, and it's going to be delivered from the supplier to Rolls-Royce, and I will pay for it. I am ordering it based on the feedback from Rolls-Royce. So you see that the integration of this global supply chain is extremely, can get complicated, but if you're properly managing it and you're bringing every parties to the discussion table, it's going to be easy. Next step, what I want to talk to you about are a couple of risk elements. When you're negotiating a complex portfolio, there's always going to be hiccups, without exception. And the hiccups are not just based on financial background. Like the most important hiccup is when somebody doesn't have the money, right? So maybe your supplier will not have the money to purchase raw material or to have or money for salaries or something like that. It can happen. You can have other performance impacting aspects as well. So quality expectations, compliance issues, language barriers, if you want. All of these needs to be constantly and closely monitored. Everybody heard about the terminology of certain work party being outsourced somewhere. Like Bombardier is outsourcing the production of the electrical harnesses in Mexico. outsourcing the build of the wings in Japan, outsourcing the build of the engine in Germany for Rolls-Royce. So all of these elements are being outsourced. This comes with opportunities of multiple failures along the line, which needs to constantly be managed. Quality expectations, I'm just going to give you a very interesting aspects, which it happened in the past, even though right now we are laughing at it. I mean, not really laughing, but it's comical in an aspect, but it's to be paid close attention. Say, again, I'm going to give you an aspect about the engine. Engine being built in Europe, Europeans are measuring everything on a metric system, right? The airplane is being built here in Canada. North American system is based on the imperial measurement system. So inch, foot, portions of the inch, like half an inch, 5/8 of the inch, like fractions of the inch, needs to be always amalgamated with millimeters, centimeters that's coming from Europe, right? It just so happened, and it's a real life situation, an aircraft took off from Montreal and wanted to fly to Calgary, which is a fair distance. And for this distance, they needed fuel. And the fuel master, the person who was in charge of fueling the aircraft, just so happened to get the fuel roster for that day, filled up the aircraft to, I'm just going to say a number here, 2,200. And he was thinking that it's 2,200 liters, whereas it was 2,200 pounds, right? So the aircraft midway had to find an alternative landing scenario. It was luckily a happy ending, if you want to say this, like nobody got hurt, the aircraft was intact, but an investigation came into place and they said, okay, it was a compliance issue. So we did not comply with we did not change the procedures into the ways how the new changes are being brought into place. So quality-wise, it was a failure. That was improved later on. Time zone differences. The meetings between the suppliers and you, the consumer, final consumer, are crucial. Always keep in touch with your supplier base. Meetings, the video meetings are the best way. The excellent way to do it is just to go there, right? You go there, you bring all your information necessary to put on the table and to start whatever you need to start to discuss with the supplier. The best is to be there. However, if not, let's say I have a supplier from Canada and my supplier is in Singapore, it's when here it's night, over there it's day, or the other way around. So in order for me to be able to conduct a proper meeting, I have to wake up in the middle of the night, or they have to wake up in the middle of the night. Next would be the language barrier. This happened, I mean, it wasn't really in supply chain, sort of. It happened between the Russian delegation and the Canadian delegation when airplanes have been sold to the Russian delegation. It turned out that the language barrier, they were saying something and they were understanding it in their way, their cultural way, and then we were translating it literally, and it turns out at the end the deal could not go through. We couldn't sell them the parts because what they were understanding from the initial offer was first they want to integrate their business into ours, and after that to buy parts, to buy airplanes, whereas we understood that they are buying airplanes, and based on a certain volume of activity, we are going to regulate our production rate based on their needs. So language barrier, it's always finicky. You have to pay attention and to translate mostly everything, if possible, into numbers, right? Production scheduling, and this takes me to another element of today's lesson. Production scheduling, it is basically what drives the supply chain. production scheduling, it is most of the time, even if it's automotive, aerospace, furniture, you name it, the production has a certain rhythm. There is a certain tact that needs to be followed. This can be cascaded down into bill of material, into the production work orders in such way that all of these elements needs to support a certain inventory, right? The inventory can be just in time. The inventory can be based on the replenished type of inventory. Whatever you need to set up a follow-up inventory for your work place, for your work environment, because you're not building, say, an airplane in one place. You're building certain parts into a workplace, another one into another workplace, and then you amalgamate it. Now, all of these workplaces, they need to be supported with components, and these components are coming as a cascaded effect of the production scheduling. The production scheduling is being supported by deliveries. Deliveries always needs to be negotiated. There are ways to negotiate the production, and in this negotiation, basically, all you want to do is to get to a full support of your internal customer. Your internal customer is your own production line. Now, when you have to go to negotiate with your own customer, the production line, and the suppliers as well. There are negotiation styles like I am competing, so I am going to win and you're going to lose. I am accommodating, so I lose, you maybe win this time, and I can afford to lose. Or I am going to not get into the conflict of interest between myself and the supplier, so I'm going to avoid this conflict, and both of us are going to lose in this. There are parts where you're going to use these negotiation styles, and you will have to support to assimilate the danger that comes with this, and you will have to just prepare yourself about the side effects of these negotiation techniques. There are others like the compromise. It's halfway between collaboration, and basically that's what it is. However, the negotiation, it's going to be always focused on the portfolio. So your portfolio, it's a component of parts that are going into an assembly of the final product, and you're going to need. I'm just going to give you an example here, very simple example. I was dealing with air systems for the airplane, and one of the air systems was the cooling pack. The cooling pack, it's a big, massive component the size of an armchair, and you have a cooling pack that deals, one cooling pack goes per engine. Now, the cooling pack, it's being provided by Liebherr from France, but their factory of cooling packs was actually based in Brazil. The cooling pack factory in Brazil caught fire. So we've got into a negotiation because, okay, we understand your factory caught fire. You need time to move whatever was rescued from the fire, to move it into a new location, set up the location, have it running, make it compliant, and then start delivery. But in meanwhile, I don't know if all of this time that requires you to take time is going to be impacting my production line, because I have to deliver an airplane every 3 days, right? So we negotiated and we said, okay, who is in need of cooling packs? So we found out that we, the Canadian airplane factory Bombardier, are in need of this. The Russian airplane factory Yakovlev are in need of this, and the Brazilian Embraer. So what we had to do is just to bring everybody in the same place and say, listen, guys, this month I'm going to need 10 cooling packs. How many are you gonna need? Yakovlev said, I'm going to need 5. Embraer said, I'm going to need 20. Fine, altogether this much. What is your rate of production? And we assembled multi-level rate production charts. It's basically a spreadsheet. Forwarded it to Liber, and I said, okay, here it is. Everybody agreed we can do some sort of conflict management here. So we are not going to conflicting your ability of delivering parts while you are restructuring your production environment. So all of these are going to constantly be thrown into your own way, and you just have to find you will just have to find creative ways to negotiating yourself out of a hiccup that's going to impact your internal customer, right?
So I'll let you interrupt here. Sorry, Rudy, for a
Yes.
second. Yeah, that's excellent. I'm a great summary. Now, if you want to prepare for a wrap up, because it's like we recorded how much, about 33 minutes. Of course, a lot of it will go out. So if we can
Okay.
like maybe get out some of 15, 20 minutes, that should be enough. So we can you can plan
Oh, I
to
was
wrap up if you
I was
want.
thinking maybe another 10 minutes, maybe
Uh,
less.
maybe less, maybe 5 minutes. So I'll
Okay.
need to walk out for a second, but please continue. I'll come back in 5 minutes. Okay.
All right. Okay.
Thank you. Yeah.
So the next elements are going. I want to talk about are the tools at your disposal. Um, what can you use in order to basically help you to have a better grip on what's happening around in the entire supply chain and basically with your own portfolio of procurement. You will have tools at your disposal. Mostly, these tools are, let's put it this way, IT based, but in the same time, they are human relationship management tools as well. And these needs to be completely implemented with the real life situation. You have a certain, let me put it this way, you have a master schedule that comes from a point of delivery rate of the final product. The master schedule is going to download the entire bill of material and the workplaces, the work buckets where these components are going to be implemented. And all of this is going to turn out into a big delivery structure that constantly needs to be managed. Like in an airplane, yes, we are delivering an airplane at the end, but you will have avionics, you will have electric components, you will have landing gear, you will have large components like tail, wings, fuselage, engines. You will have air systems, the way how I was dealing. So all of these big elements that needs to be managed into the final product needs to be controlled, and the best way to control it, it's a system. It's a tool. We used to have something that's called SAP. Probably it's one of the most spread IT environments where you are using computing modules in each environment that are completely amalgamated at the end, and it's going to help you have a thorough grip on the final product's management throughout the assembly line. There are companies who are working on procurement tools exclusively, and they are letting the procurement tool to read the feedback from let's warehousing, from the internal supply chain, from the database of the inventory available at supplier, and take out the human factor. Or there are platforms who are doing this, and artificial intelligence is one good example that is going to measure this. Or there are other platforms where an entire system is amalgamated, because if you can have a portfolio where it's too much for you to manage, only certain parts that require your attention, you will split your attention to it. Everything else can go automatically. So one more time, everything needs to be integrated, and you will have to finally make sure that your suppliers and your internal customers are going to be supported by your final touch on these systems and your management of these systems in order to place the purchase orders, in order to mitigate non-conformances down the line, or in order to mitigate, let's say somebody comes up and they say, I want to build an airplane where the air management has to be different. So in this way, engineering comes in place, and they're going to say, you have to stop buying this type of ducting, and you will have to find another supplier for another type of ducting. So the IT system that is supporting your and it's integrated into your purchasing platform needs to be adjusted because engineering is requesting a different approach, right? And a very interesting element of the purchasing is the purchasing ethics. You are talking mostly along the line with professionals. There are laws in place, and there are quality expectations in place. Remember how I said at the beginning that you have to have ISO certification for every supplier that's going to participate for your activity as a procurement agent. And that is going to provide you the background comfort that you are dealing with suppliers that if they promise you a delivery, you are going to get it, right? You will see how important is the HR part of this into the communication. I'm just going to give you another example. Manchester BWT so happened to go in 2008 when we had the global crash in 2008, 2009. They had to fire people, they had to lay off people. And then when we accelerated production in 2010 or 11, they will start looking to ask those people to come back. Now, those people found in meanwhile other jobs. And now BWT was literally scrambling to find qualified people to get themselves into the workforce at every level, starting with manufacturing, and after that with the support, like supply chain. It was quite, I wouldn't call it mass, but it was quite an engagement from the side of BWT to step up and make sure that they are supporting us in ramping up the production. So basically, in a nutshell, you are always going to face a crisis that needs to be handled. You will always have things that are going to go automatically by themselves, and you will always have to rely on the feedback on an IT systems, which most of the time are communicating with each other. If they are not communicating, then you will have to step in and manage this information flow manually, personally. You download your end, the supplier downloads their end, and you are amalgamating it through spreadsheets. And I would like to end here today's session. I hope it's going to help to provide an insight on your future career. I wish you all the best. And I am sure that you are going to find joy working in a supply chain. One more thing that I wanted to add here is that, as I mentioned at the beginning, supply chain is a huge umbrella. Lots of things are being aggregated into this. And you will find a job, or you are already in a job, which is one part of this aggregation. One of the BRASI courses is going to, so one of the aspects of why BRASI courses are so important and so crucially going to impact your future in the supply chain is because they're going to cover multiple aspects of this supply chain umbrella. And everything that I just explained here, only a tiny part, tip of the iceberg, everything, it's way larger than we can just fit into a topic here. But with confidence, I can recommend you to follow all the courses available with BRASI, and you will see that it's going to bring you more and more clarity into how to handle properly the supply chain. Wishing you all the best.
Thank you, Rudy. That was amazing. The amount of knowledge you packed into such a short presentation, it speaks not only of the topic that you master, but also your in-depth analysis and your unique approach from a very diverse perspective. So again, thank you very much, Rudy, for today's presentation. I'm sure that our students will gain a lot from your leadership thoughts.
Thank you for having me. I wish everybody all the best,
Thank
and
you, same to you.
stay in touch. All right.
Take care. Bye-bye.